Hello, and welcome to Postcards from a Soul and Her Human. I'm the human Sophia. This is going to be interesting, I think. I invited my family of light, as always, to work with me in this incredible medium, this microphone and this laptop, which allows me this incredible access that has really become a really joyful element of my life. And I remember in the very beginning when I first started to do this nearly 4 years ago, I just I so unsure about what it was for and why I was even doing it. And it has just become like the most fun thing that I do. And I think, my spirit guides, who I talk about a lot and who I will continue to talk about because they are such a crucial element of this energy that I've been able to cultivate in my body. I just I honestly sometimes am speechless when I think about it. They have brought me to a place in my life where I feel absolute just joy, and I approach everything with such playfulness. And I think this is something that has really surprised me because I have been utterly alone for, I don't even know. It feels like 5 minutes. It feels like 100 years. Going on 5 years now. And I have my daughter and my granddaughter who I see on a regular basis. So they're there, thankfully, because they are my earth medicine. I always tell my daughter, I say, when I come and see the both of you and I spend the day with you, I am so grounded in this reality that I'm living in this house, in this environment. But as soon as I leave them, my heart just soars to a different dimension. It's just gone. And if I had to describe it, it's like I'm not even walking on earth anymore. I just live in a completely different. I can use the word reality again. It's just getting old, but like I just don't live here. I just don't. But what's happened over the last, especially I would say, I don't know, 2 or 3, maybe 5 months, maybe even 6, I've just felt this playfulness with everything, this absolute joy to explore and to experience. And it has really led me to uh, a a level of detachment. And I talked about this a few episodes ago. That is so mother flipping liberating. I can't even speak about it sometimes. Sit in absolute awe of it. And what I mean by detachment is not that I'm detached out of bitterness or pain or an unwillingness to go on in this 3D reality. It is a detachment from outcomes. It's a detachment from needing to know what's coming or how it's going to emerge. It's a detachment uh, from fear and worry and insecurities that rise when we think we're not going to get what we want, when what we want is completely out of alignment with our soul's purpose 90% of the time because we are not clear enough to know what we want. It's such an extraordinary feeling. And this podcast allows me a very unique way to express this. And I never know what I'm going to say. And this is the beautiful part about this. And I remember very, very early on, before I ever started the podcast, receiving a tarot message from my guides way back when, the beginning of this awakening phase, which is going on 5 years now, that I would be doing something that I would feel in my element doing. And it wasn't long after that I intuitively knew to record, and that I asked my daughter, hey, I'm thinking of putting a video on my website to draw people maybe to my articles. And she said, Mom, I see you doing a podcast. And that was the beginning of this. And of course, that the comment from my daughter that resonated so deeply was guidance, because our guides work through each other, the people in our lives, to guide us. And she said exactly what I needed to hear, and I put it into motion. And now I have this absolutely joyful outlet. And I know it might seem phony sometimes. Like I just feel so playful with everything. And this level of this detachment has allowed me to And I'll tell you that the detachment can only come when you become an observer in your own life. When you realize that you are playing a role in a theater that you are directing, that you wrote, that you cast all the characters. And the best analogy for this, that when my daughter and I talk, is a video game, and I've used this before. You're an avatar in a video game. And as you're playing your character in the lower levels, when you're fighting the demons and running into walls and falling into holes and falling off of buildings, all the things that you have to do to find the next prize, to gain more power, to go to a higher level, you don't realize that you are not being controlled by anyone other than yourself. It's only when you get to the higher levels of the game, and people who've played video games can easily relate to this. When you get to the highest level, you become aware of everything that you've gone through. You can look back and see everything that you did, and you understand the purpose of it because it got you where you are, to this elevated place. And when you get to that elevated place, you are given a new power, the power to see and to perceive things more as they are, and not as the side character that you started out as in the lower levels of the game, where you had to prove your worth by being courageous and moving through the whatever the game throws at you. And you fall and you fall and you fall and you keep getting back up. And this is all part of the process of remembering or awakening, is your courage to keep going. And when you get to the top level of the game, you are actually allowed to see now that not only are you not a side character, you're the main character. And the whole game was about you, even though it seemed like it was about getting a prize or maybe even assisting a bigger, more powerful being. You realize that it was all about you and it was all for you. And then you gain a new perspective, which is the opening of the third eye, that you can see that you are having an experience on behalf of your soul. And when you start to be able to get that observer perspective, you can detach from what you're actually experiencing. And then once you detach, and it's a natural process, I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I flip and don't know. It just was a natural evolutionary process of letting go what didn't serve me anymore. And this was people, places, and things. I walked away from my business that I didn't know how I was going to make money. I walked away from family members that I didn't resonate with. I have zero connections in my life right now. I haven't spoken to a human being socially, except for my friend Igor, who I have a podcast with, in 5 years. I take that back. I did have connections within that 5 years. But if we're talking about not speaking to a person socially, at least it's been a year and a half almost since I've had a social interaction with anyone. And this time has been so incredible. And the beautiful part is when I got to the point where I started to become the observer, I realized that that loneliness is an illusion. I've been alone 90% of my life for almost 5 years now, and it has just been the most joyful, exciting, liberating, playful experience that I could have ever had otherwise. And I think this is like autophagy in the body, and I'm just learning about this. Unless you clear everything out, your body can't rebuild itself and renew itself in a higher version. And same with the video games. You have to die over and over in order to create to embody the courage that you need to get to the highest level. So, autophagy in the body is the body's ability to eat itself. And I said this before when I did the 3-day fast, and now I'm being encouraged to do a 5-day fast. And I understand why exactly, because when you fast for 5 days, your body is then able to clean up all the mess of all of the accumulation of toxins and poisons and zombie cells and all the things in your body that inhibit clear coherence and growth, regrowth and rebirth. And I'm having this incredible experiment with regenerating my body. And I don't know if I talked about this before, but I do a ritual every morning. I actually shared the ritual that I do every morning a few episodes ago. And I'm being guided through the tarot and through my social media messages and through my intuition to keep refining my diet and to have certain things in my diet and to fast. And this is so interesting because autophagy, I think that autophagy, yeah, I think that's what it's called, is the body being cleared of the digestive process long enough where it can start to eat and clear and remove all of the toxins that build up in the body. And these toxins can be future cancer cells, or they can be future long-term illness or disease. This is giving your body a chance to clear all that out. And as you rise in your frequency, your body becomes more light and less density. So this is a crucial process, and I'm being guided very clearly to now do a 5-day fast. And so I'm going to be doing that. I'll talk about that later. But but this time that I've been spent alone, and I'm not recommending this to anyone who isn't guided to do this, because you have to be careful. There can be a very fine line between the brain and the ego, and the heart and the soul, which is our gut brain, which is our solar plexus or our sacral chakra. I'm not sure which one, but we have two brains in the body, and if we follow this brain, which is logic and fear-based thinking, then we don't get to experience the autophagy that can happen when we spend time alone. But you have to be guided to do that. You can't do it from a place of fear. And I've seen this play out in my life with other people around me, where they tried to mimic what I was doing, which was a very natural process that my soul was guiding me through, and they ended up more frustrated. So I just want to be clear that this was not something I decided to do one day. I ran screaming from my reality. I mean, quite literally, my hair on fire, screaming from it. And I always have characterized the beginning of my awakening as being pulled out of the illusion by my ear. And I have been that's been validated over and over in the messages that I've even had my spirit guides apologize to me in a recent reading, that I had to go through the psychological warfare, the spiritual warfare of my last relationship, when my ex-husband, I believe, was compromised by lower vibrating entities to keep me from waking up. And that sounds like a sci-fi movie, but it is absolute reality. The people who came here, or the souls who came here to help Mother Earth rise into her highest frequency, which is happening right now, we are under spiritual attack all the time, because the lower vibrating entities who are keeping the overlay of fear and lack, and it's reflected in the systems, our financial systems, which are debt-based and fear-based, and it's reflected in our medical systems, which are all medicinal. You have to take this medication in order to be healthy, when it's actually destroying our body's ability to heal itself, which is very natural if we just would connect with nature and calm ourselves down. There's so much more there, but I won't go off on a tangent. But this autophagy of my soul and my ability, first of all, to be alone. There's no loneliness when you get to this point, because you realize that you are not only the best company that you could ever have, but you are love. That when you embody self-love, and I know that's such a big thing to say, you realize that you don't need it from outside of yourself. And when you realize that, you can really start to play. And this observer perspective, where everything that I experience in my life is an intrigue, or it is an experiment, or it is an experience. That's how I look at everything. I don't worry about the outcomes. The outcomes are none of my business. That's my soul's business. She's just guiding me down a pathway to where she wants me to go. And I receive messages all the time. And just real quickly, back to what I was saying about my spirit guides apologizing to me. They said, we had to let that happen in order for you to break, because I had such a high tolerance for pain and trauma, because I had gone through so much, especially as a child. And, being betrayed and taken advantage of and abandoned I knew how to do that. So it was easy for me to stay in a connection that supported that. I mean, it's as simple as that. So something heinous had to happen in order for me to really break. And my spirit guides knew that if I was cheated on, I would have left. That's easy. That's clear, concise information. If you cheat on me, I'm going. I'm sorry. That's a border that even I, in my lower vibrational state, knew that no one could cross. And that's not what happened. The betrayal was being lied to about the person I was with for nearly 25 years, about who he was. And at the end of our relationship, he finally told me, which was horrifying. And I ran screaming with my hair on fire out of that connection. And I knew, and my soul team has validated since then, that they allowed that to happen. And this is basically what they allowed to happen. And they apologized profusely for this in a recent message, that they knew that I was being spiritually attacked. They knew that I was uh, being controlled with psychological warfare. And they had to let it happen to a point until I broke. But as soon as I broke, they got me out of there. And that's how I characterize the whole thing. And that's how important my mission here is on Earth. And every one of us who are interplanetary souls or angelics, which I'm both, have come here to help Mother Earth ascend and to make sure all of her children, which is every expression of life, from soil to the tallest trees and everything in between, to make sure that they can go with her, including humanity, of course. So because of our missions, and there are many of us here, we are spiritually attacked throughout our whole lives. And my life absolutely reflects that. So I ran screaming out of that connection and right into my spiritual awakening, which now at this point in my life, and I would say for the last year, maybe year and a half, I've been the observer instead of the experiencer. And that makes all the difference. So when you reach the highest level of the video game, you are given the awareness that it was all a game, that you are in a virtual reality. And then you realize when you look over at the console and the people who are, or the person who's running the game, you see that it's you. And you see that everything in that game happened because you designed it that way so you could learn specific lessons. So you can experience traumas and pain and loss and betrayal and abandonment and victimhood and loss of connection to source, which is what I suffered desperately from. That you went all through that for a very good reason. And when you get that third party perspective, that observer perspective, that third eye perspective, you can relax and let go of everything that you accumulated as far as pain, trauma, your belief systems, everything. You can just drop it all like armor because you don't need it anymore, because you know you're safe. You're always safe. You're never in danger when you're in this form, when you're in this virtual reality. And I heard this recently. Your soul is always safe. The real you, the energetic ball of light that is your essence, is in another dimension making all this happen. You, us, the human vessel, this seemingly solid vessel, which is absolutely just a vortex of energy spinning so fast that it feels solid. When you realize that, your soul is safe. Your soul is not ever in any danger. And why do you think that we have such a finite experience? Why do you think that we treasure life so much? It's because we die. And we know that the other end of this, no one gets out alive. So we treasure this experience. This is all by design. And when we treasure the experience, then we're not wasting the opportunities. Well, most of us, some of us, I don't know, that's a personal thing. But when you realize from this third party perspective that you're having a third party experience, you let everything go. You start to understand the purpose of everything. And my life was fraught with physical and sexual abuse. I suffered from Stockholm syndrome. I had, I was abandoned and betrayed, and all the things that our soul wants us to experience in order to grow. And I am a generational curse breaker, and I know many of the interplanetary souls that are here are also doing the same thing. My daughter is also one. She's going through a very powerful awakening right now, where she's letting go of all that armor, all of the things in her body that used to serve her when she needed protection that now no longer serve her, and she's able to let it go. And she is from a later wave of star seeds, and she doesn't have the same calibration range that I had to go through. I had to go, I was one of the early ones. I came in the 60s, early 60s, and I brought a lot of garbage in with me, not just mine. My ancestors, my past lives, which are thousands and thousands from what I understand. And it's just amazing when you get to that top level and you look over at the console and you see yourself at the controls. Another way to look at this is in a movie. I mean, you are the lead actor, you are the writer, you are the producer, the director, you funded the whole thing. You hired all the cast. This is your movie. But we just don't realize that because as a non-participating character, which is who we are in the early parts of our lifetimes before awakening, we don't realize we're the main character. We don't realize that our role is central until we get to the point where we look around and say, "Oh, I see it now." There's so much more here. I mean, I could talk for 4 days straight about it, but but my point is again with that autophagy, by being allowed or being honestly isolated, which started at the beginning of COVID-19. I couldn't go anywhere. That was the very beginning of my awakening, was right around the beginning of COVID. I had to be alone in my house. I was petrified to go outside. I was so full of fear. I was laden with it. I had just found out that the person I spent nearly 25 years with, that I had a business with for 12 years, was not who he said he was. I mean, he admitted to me that he wasn't, he wore a mask the whole time. And now he was tired of holding the mask up and he was letting it go and sorry about your luck. And it was devastating. I was in the darkest time of my life. But I was forced into isolation, and this was absolutely by design. I needed to be alone, and the very first message I received from my guides was just rest. And then the second one was, yes, we're talking to you. We're meant to work with you. It's time to wake up. And then from then, that was for nearly 5 years ago, that from then I've received continual messaging and support from these otherworldly beings, these these unincarnated essences or intelligence who are primarily extraterrestrial. And I think this is interesting that I don't think I've ever said this really before, but what I've learned about myself is that I am an extraterrestrial being, which means I'm not an earth-bound body or soul. And I know I spoke about this before, and I have learned that I have an ancestry line that would choke a horse, that I have very famous souls in my ancestry, including Egyptian royalty, Isis, Horus, Hathor, Osiris, and many more. Biblical souls, Yeshua, Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, and others. I believe that I was an angel with Yeshua during the biblical time of his death and ascension. There's so much more here, but my point is what is my point? Oh boy, I might have lost it. Sorry about that. Anyway, this time I've been able to spend alone and to really learn who I am, and even on an interplanetary level, who I am, that I came here for this reason, that I have a very particular, specific, and unique mission here. Learning all that about myself while I'm going through this isolation and all the healing. Oh, that's what I was talking about. I was going through all this healing of trauma that wasn't even mine. I've lived so many lifetimes that I was actually sent here by my ancestry to heal the lineage. So I can free the lineage from the low vibrational patterns of the people who incarnate in the earth plane and other places. So my life was I was never in poverty, but I was always struggling in a lack mindset. I suffered all kinds of abuses, mental, physical, and sexual, and so on and so on. A lot of people can relate to that. A lot of it wasn't mine. I remember sitting during the later parts of my healing, which is about the first 7 months of my awakening and beyond, and having thoughts that were horrifying. I'm like, why am I thinking about this? Where did this even come from? And at the time, I didn't realize that my brain is a receiver. I'm not manufacturing any new thoughts. My brain is a receiver. My third eye is an antenna. I've said this before. I'm able to transduce what I learn through my words, my vibration, because it's integrated in my body as vibration. Everything is energetic. There's nothing else going on. We're so distracted by the illusion of this physical form, we can't understand that we are just an energetic being literally manifested in a form that looks interesting enough and that we can use to interact with other people, places, and things to learn about ourselves, which is basically what we're doing. Our soul's always safe in its whole essence, which never dies. It never feels pain. It doesn't carry trauma. It is egoless. It is just it's pure consciousness, and it's attached. It is pure. I mean, I can keep saying it's attached to other consciousness, but it's all one consciousness. And this is another place you get where the I am comes in. And I'm like, what does I am mean? I don't even know what that is. And what I realized when I learned who my soul was, and I haven't said this out loud and I don't feel called to do it now, that I'm not only who I am as a soul, this ancient soul, this interplanetary soul who's also incarnated as Pleiadian and Mintakan and many, many other life forms on different planetary systems, that I am I've lived so many lifetimes and I've had so many experiences that I was full, my soul wanted to purge all this so I could keep evolving. I'm not sure if I stayed on track with that. If I didn't, I apologize. Sometimes it's difficult sometimes, and I'll say this now because I'm going to tell a story that is going to involve a timeline that I may not get right. And I realize I do this in other episodes. The timelines are not always accurate because where I live in this energetic reality, time is slipping by. Like I honestly, I can be doing something and it feels like 5 minutes and 2 hours has gone by. My concept of linear time has just slipped away. And this is why I talked about this in another episode, that linear time has just fallen away. I don't feel it as a driving element in my life anymore. I just don't. And this is why I'm experimenting with anti-aging and not with products at all, with ritual and with talking to my body and changing my diet and doing this 5-day fast, which again is going to allow my body to get rid of zombie cells so I can start to regenerate more actively. And I don't know where this is going. It's just a fun experiment. And this is, again, brings me back to the joy and the playfulness that I feel about everything. This is extraordinary. It's just, and this is my inner child playing finally, because my actual child was abused and she was neglected and abandoned at a very young age. And I grew up in a family of rampant alcoholism on my mother's side and suppressed sexual deviancy on my father's side. I mean, and I chose these parents. This is another thing. When you get this wide, broad perspective of, why this video game was so difficult, you understand the reason for all of it. I chose my parents because I wanted to be set on this path of discovery, of healing eventually. I mean, it took me 58 years. Don't get me wrong. It was not easy. But I was meant to awaken at a late stage of this lifetime. And I don't know, maybe I'm going to live for 1,200 years. Maybe, I don't know. I just know that anything is possible and that I may grow wings and fly around one day. I may walk as my Pleiadian self one day. I don't know. All I know is the Earth's frequency is changing at such a rate and it's affecting my body at so powerfully that I feel limitless. I feel like I could levitate and fly over to my front door. Nothing feels. And I talked about this briefly in the last episode or the one before, that the script has been flipped. What is not real is real. What feels like a fantasy or sci-fi is actually real. And what feels like a solid reality is the illusion. It just is. You get this third eye perspective when you get to the top of the video game, when you get to the highest level. And guess what? There's no more game. So do you know what you get to do now? You get to sit at the console and watch everyone else go through their journey. And that's when you develop or cultivate unconditional love, because you realize what you went through and the purpose of it. And then you see everyone else on their journey who used to drive you flipping crazy, trigger you and send you into traumatic rages or frustration or anger or sadness or depression. You realize that they're all following their own path and they're doing the exact same thing. So how can I fault them? I did the same thing. And when you start to be able to identify that identity, that ability to empathize turns into love. And then you just realize that you don't have to feel any way about anyone. You just stay the fuck out of the way. You don't have to endure anyone. And this is why I let everyone in my life go. And not that I had to endure everyone. I don't want to leave that impression. I've just been growing so rapidly in my frequency that I couldn't maintain relationships with people from my past. Nothing wrong with anyone. They're lovely, a lot of them lovely people. But this is just my soul, my particular soul being guided to do this because it's part of my path, my destiny. And it's just exquisite. I mean, the design is exquisite. And I just want to be clear about this. I am living in an energy almost, I would say 90% alone most of the time. I am having more joyful excitement and playfulness in my life than I've ever had in any connection or anywhere or doing anything. This is, and I'm stuck in my house too. It's the middle of winter. It's February 1st today, 2026. I have not really gone anywhere. I'm shoveling my driveway for exercise because we've gotten so much snow. I'm trying to get as much sunlight from my back window as I can because I can't be outside very long. It's 0 to 12 degrees the last couple of weeks. It's very cold and very snowy, but it doesn't matter. I used to think I had to be outside in order to be happy, but all I had to do was remember that I am energy and that there's no floor between me and the earth. There's no barrier. It's all elusive. So I sit in my living room and I know I'm connected to Mother Earth, who is someone I'm working very closely with, who is satiating me and calibrating me and healing me and guiding me to do what I came here to do as an interplanetary angelic being. So I guess the point was detachment there, because that kind of segues me into this next part, which is really what I wanted to come on. And I feel so playful with this. And this is so much fun, you guys. I can't even take it. I am out of my mind. And I meant to do this episode yesterday. Today's Sunday. I normally record on Sunday, but I was so excited and I felt so much joy about doing this one that the night before, Friday, I decided I'd do it on Saturday. But I woke up Saturday morning when a whole other idea came to me. And I ended up sitting in this chair facing those sliding glass barn doors are covering my sliding glass door to my backyard and my patio. And I sit and look out of there. That's where I spend a lot of time when I'm home. And I just started to have a vision, a very powerful vision. And I understand from my soul tribe that I am being awakened exponentially, like on a fast track. That I've refined my body through diet and rest and isolation. And now my gifts are being refined. And I talked about this over the last several episodes. When I did the 3-day fast, I had a solar plexus upgrade. When I am very recently and still going through the tail end of another upgrade, which is my third eye and my crown chakra. And this is my ability to receive cosmic wisdom and knowledge. And this is how I know things without knowing how I know them. And this is allowing me to tap into current energy that is being manifested on a different parallel dimension. I'm sorry. I know it sounds wild, but it's just my reality. So I had a vision that lasted nearly 2 hours yesterday, and I'm sitting in this chair having this vision about what I'm going to do in the world. And it felt like 20 minutes, and I woke up and it was almost 2 hours. And that's what I'm talking about. This time is just irrelevant. It is cyclical in nature. It's not linear. And I think when I let go of that idea, it really allowed me to imagine what's possible when we liberate ourselves from the laws of the matrix. And some of them are designed by benevolent beings to, linear time is one of the things that were installed to move us through a progression. So we would know that there's an end coming, and we would do the work, and we would have the experience without thinking we're limitless or eternal. We forget all that when we come here. We purposely wipe our memory so we can have a genuine, authentic awakening during this time. And we don't always do it in every lifetime. We mostly don't. What I've been told about this lifetime very recently was that we've done, and I say we, because I had my soul family with me the whole time, my higher self, my oversoul, my spirit guides, who are many ascended masters, and Egyptian and Roman and Scottish and other gods and goddesses, deities, Vikings. I've had many lifetimes as Vikings and Oh my gosh, there's so much that's coming into my that I'm being made aware of. That I forgot what I was going to say. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, I totally lost it. It's gone. Sorry. This is another thing that happens a lot. And I think this is honestly has to do with, well, I was always kind of absent-minded, to be honest, but all the constant recalibration of my energy, I'm distracted. I'm forgetting things. Like I left my phone at my daughter's house twice in a week, and I had never ever done that before. And this is so interesting to witness. This is messy. It's funny. I used to cut these parts out, but I'm going to leave it in because it really illustrates how amazing and how unconventional this experience really is. I have no idea what I was going to say. I don't remember what it was. Maybe it'll come to me, but I don't know. But I know that I've had all these incredible lifetimes and these experiences and oh, here it is. Thank you. What I was told recently was that what we, and I say we because my spirit guides are again all of these incredible beings, have worked with me to get here, that we have done more work in one lifetime than we could have done in five. And I was saying this out loud last night because I am now 63 years old. I started my awakening at 58 years old. 58 years old. And I, again, didn't know this is the most fearful time for women when they are alone because, who's going to hire me and how am I going to make money and how am I going to find another partner? This is when we start to lose hope, and we were taught that if we don't have all this in our early years, then we're never going to have it. And you might as well just, roll into a ball and sit in a corner for the rest of your life. And I knew without knowing that none of that mattered, that I just had to go no matter what happened. I had to go into the unknown. I had to jump off the cliff. I had to go into that awakening. But when I really think about it, it was the first 7 months of that healing that I really transmuted the majority of the trauma, pain, belief systems. And I started to have a real awareness that I was in a construct and that I had a way out. And it didn't matter what convention said I should or shouldn't have at this stage in my life. None of it mattered. And of course, now it matters. I mean, I can't even say it doesn't matter at all. It holds no value at all to me. The fact that I'm 63 years old and alone does not scare me at all. The fact that I don't have an active income does not scare me at all. I know that I will always have what I need. And I'm keep being told in the messages that it's my mindset. And this is different from your heart because your mind has to agree. This coherence has to be through all of your chakras. My mindset knows that I'm safe. It makes sense to me that my soul is safe in another dimension, marionetting me in this one. It makes sense to me that I am interplanetary and divine. It makes sense to me that I am eternal. It makes sense to me that I am here on a mission because honestly, guys, nothing before this made any sense at all. I wandered this earth like a lost puppy. I didn't know where I belonged. I didn't feel resonant with anything or anyone. I honestly, this life that I'm living right now, which is completely alone for the most part, with all of this information about who I am as a soul and what I'm doing here, which is still coming in this linear future, this is where I belong. This is what I was made for. This is what I was designed for. There is nothing wrong. There's no lack mindset. There is no disbelief. There's no doubt. When I sit and have a vision like I did yesterday for nearly 2 hours, I know that I'm tapping into a current reality that I'm just not in right now. And there are millions possibly of these realities that are playing out because my soul is massive and my soul is ancient and my soul is projecting her or his, from what I understand, essence into many different experiences on many different planes and many different realities. This is just the one that I'm having on behalf of my soul. So this, guys, is all that makes sense to me. It doesn't matter where I'm going. It doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter who I'm with. It doesn't matter where I am. It doesn't matter my role or what, if I'm meant to sit in the back room on a microphone for the rest of my life or if I'm meant to be on a world stage. It doesn't matter. It doesn't flipping matter. That's the beauty of this third eye, third party perspective, is you get to see that none of it matters. The outcome is not up to me. It's the soul's goal wherever I end up. I'm meant to have the experience on behalf of my soul. That's it. So it's allowed me to detach from absolutely everything in my world. If something happens to my vehicle, I know that it'll just get fixed. I don't have to worry about it. Why do I stress about it? If something happens, if my house burns down tomorrow, I know that that was part of the soul's plan to move me to a new location or direction. I'm not saying that it has to happen. I'm willing and able to go. And I believe that, and I say soon with air quotes, because linear time does not matter. It's always right now. So whether I move in a month or a year, it doesn't matter, but I know I'm not going to be here forever. It's not this. I've energetically outgrown this environment. I can't learn anything else here. I also can't embody who I am completely here, because when you talk about polarity and energy, so if you push on my body and you say, well, you're real, Sophia, I can feel you. And I've seen this illustrated in a social media post, which of course was no mistake. I'm a vortex of energy. And when you touch me, I am pushing back on you. The polarity of our two energies is creating what appears to be a solid surface. There's nothing solid about me. I said before, if I were vibrating at the same resonance of that couch, when I sat on it, I'd fall right through it. I could put my finger through a boulder if I was vibrating at the same frequency, that lower density frequency as the boulder. To me, this makes so much sense. And as I was liberated from the 3D matrix and the beliefs and the conventions of that, it's easy for me to connect with all of this ethereal, magical, mystical, fantastical reality, because this is what makes sense to me. And that's all I can say. So detachment came very easy. When I started to see myself as a third party, from a third party perspective, I could see everything that I did, everything that I went through, including the people who injured me. And I do that with air quotes again, because I asked them to do. I mean, think of it this way. And I was saying this to my daughter the other day, because she's going through such an active awakening. We have these amazing conversations. I said, just imagine yourself as a soul, pre-incarnation, having a meeting with all of the characters that you are casting in your life. And you're saying, okay, you're going to be my husband. And when you're my husband, you have to push all my buttons. So here are my buttons. And I give you a list of what you need to do to anger my demons. Because when we're in our lower vibrational realities and our versions of ourselves, our demons and our traumas and our dragons, or however you want to describe lower tendencies in our behavior, are conducting our relationships. The human, the real person, the soul essence is not conducting relationships until the human can work through all of that trauma and release it all, transmute it. And then the dragons and demons are either domesticated, if you're a dragon, or you're exorcised, if you're a demon, and you become part of the power. And then your soul can reveal to you who you really are. You are not who you are in a low vibrational relationship. You are your trauma, your demons having an experience. So you're telling your future husband, your soulmate, these are all soulmates, and I have millions of them, and I'll get to that in a minute. You're telling your soulmate, okay, when we come together when I'm 33 years old, these are my triggers, so I want you to hit all of them really hard. Don't hold back. Because I need to experience them in order to either go deeper into them, which is not time for me to heal, or to start to look in that mirror that you're holding up for me. And then I can see who I am clearly and go, oh, I'm stuck in a karmic loop. I do this every time you push that button. I have the same reaction. What can I do differently now? And I said, just imagine that you're having this meeting with everyone in your life, your boss, your sibling, your parents, your romantic connections, your friends. All of them have a role that you cast. When you see that so clearly, it's like, oh my gosh, of course, in order for me to overcome this trauma that I might have carried on for lifetimes, I need to be catalyzed. You have to poke the bear. You have to aggravate or agitate my demons and dragons in order for them to attack. And when they attack, you just you mirror that back to me, and I'm stuck in this karmic loop. So I was having this discussion with my daughter, and this was a few weeks ago. I said, because she was telling me about an experience she had with her husband in the kitchen that was kept repeating, and this is throughout their relationship. And I said, think about that little experience as a vignette, as a little mini scene in a movie, and you cast the characters and you wrote the script. When he pushes that button, are you going to follow the script, or are you going to be aware that you're following a script, which is a karmic loop? And this is what we get stuck in, why we can't grow, because we have the same old reactions to the same old agitations, and we are stuck in this. And until we get out of it, break free of it, do something different consciously, we're going to keep attracting that in our lives. So every boyfriend looks the same, every girlfriend looks the same, every boss looks the same, and so on. And she said, yes, Mom, I saw it. And I knew I could do something different. And I did. And she said, it clicked just like that. And I said, the beautiful part about breaking karmic loops when they're happening real time is you'll never experience it again. And she told me recently, she said, Mom, I finally understand what you mean about that, because now I'm aware of it. This is what awareness is. I'm aware of it. So I won't experience it again because I'm cognizant in the moment. I know I'm being triggered, but now somehow that trigger doesn't feel the same. I'm still aware of it, like the remnant of it is there. The echo of it's still in my energy, but I don't feel reactive this time. And she was amazed. She said, Mom, I know I'll never experience it again. And I said, that's what I'm talking about. When I transmuted trauma, I knew that I would never experience it again because it has nowhere to go. It can't sit in a higher vibrational setting because it's low vibrational. That's frequency. That's polarity. When you rise from lower vibrancy or frequency, you cannot experience that anymore because it's just not resonant. So I will never attract demons into my life again. And I say that lovingly. Okay. Anyhow, the whole point of this was about detachment and about really having fun with what goes on in my life. And I have to tell you that I'm at a part in my life where I am just enjoying everything. Things that used to ground me into doubt and into insecurity are now just these incredible intrigues. And I've adopted the word intrigue instead of challenge or adversity because it's always an intrigue. What am I going to learn? Or how can I free myself from an old pattern? And I'm always looking for those karmic loops, which quite honestly don't exist anymore. They're just gone. So what's happened recently is so interesting. And oh my gosh, this is so much fun. And I think I'm going to call this episode Thank You Next. It may not be the whole title, but I was talking to my daughter about this the other day. I said, I think I'm going to do an episode about my soulmate saga that I'm on because it's so interesting and so fantastical. And I'm so entertained by it. And I have to say that because this is something that would have really, really depressed me in my old versions of myself, but it is just so much fun. So I said to her, I said, I'm going through another soulmate issue. And I said, I just kind of feel like, I watched a show called Thank You Next. I thought was really entertaining. I said, I think I'm going to do an episode just and call it Thank You Next, about the rotating door of soulmates in my life that I have not met anyone yet. I've not spoken to any of them yet, but this is so fun. And she just laughed. And I was looking at messages or listening to tarot messages it was the last night or the night before last, or 2 nights ago. I don't know. Again, time is irrelevant. So forgive me if I am confused about time because it is honestly, it can be 5 minutes or 5 years. I don't know. So anyway, it was a couple of nights ago, I think, and I was listening to a message, and this is Freya Ray. She channels the angels, and I am very, very heavily guided and protected by the angelic realm. I am an angel. I am a seraphim soul. I am a very unique angelic soul. I don't feel called to talk about that more, but anyway, I was listening to a message the other night, and Freya Ray was talking about how I have become detached from the soulmate saga, and I'll just call it saga because it's a whole story in and of itself. And I'll go into that in just a moment, but she said the energy that you're in, and she's reflecting my energy, because the way this works, and just so you know, with the tarot messages, if you resonate deeply with a message, your higher self is delivering that message. So whenever I look at a message, it's my higher self. It is Isis. It is Hathor. It is Yeshua. It is Mary Magdalene. It is Mother Mary. It is an archangel, which there are many around me. It is amazing, but that they are me. I am them. There is no separation. We are all one energy. So again, as I understand that, I know when I'm listening to a message, it is me basically talking to me from another dimension. And yes, this embodiment might have incarnated over and over as these other souls, these quite famous souls, but this is me basically talking to me. Your guides are you. They're guiding you. So anyway, my higher self is coming through, telling me through Freya that your energy, because they are my energy, they know me better than I do, is of detachment right now, that you are open to a soulmate connection and to true love, which is what I'm meant to experience in this world. I don't care how mother effing old I am. I might be 90 years old. It doesn't matter. I'm meant to experience true love because it's what my soul intended for me, for her, for him on this journey. But I'm so detached from the outcome of this that I am really living in an energy of absolute expectation of the highest potential in a partner, but with no attachment to who that might be or when they might come. And I say outside all the time, out loud all the time, man or no man, let's just keep moving. Let's move me to this new location. Let's get me started. And I'm also aware that my soulmate may be integral for me going into this new phase because we are meant to activate each other. We are two sides of the same coin. And as much as I want to deny that or resist that, it is part of the truth, part of my mission. So as much as I might be detached from the outcome, I'm still very much open and willing and happy and joyful for this partnership and this connection that's coming in. So that she basically said, and this was so fun, and I was laughing out loud. She said, "You are kind of over it, but you're open, and you're saying and she said, you're saying, kind of next." And then she said, "Thank you, next." And I was so joyful because that was my soul validating me doing this episode about the soulmate saga. And I thought that was so fun. So anyway, I'll update you on what's happened over the last 6 months or so. I was made aware of my twin flame, and I use air quotes again for that because that term is so loosely used in the spiritual realm. A twin flame can be a twin soul, and that may very well be the same soul split in two, which is what I always thought that I was with another soul. But I had a false twin flame. After leaving a 25-year karmic soulmate relationship, I had a false twin flame for 3.5 years that kept me distracted from who I thought was my actual twin flame. And he very well may be. I'm not saying he isn't. But there were 2 subsequent temporary soulmate connections that were attempting to be established between the false soulmate and the last one that I was in energetic connection with for 6 or 7 months. And this was the very famous person who I knew was my twin flame, or knew as my twin flame. I won't go into detail about, I just stopped using labels. I guess that's the best way I can put it. I refer to this person in my future as a counterpart. Whether he's a twin flame or not is not relevant. It doesn't matter in the spiritual realm. That's a term that we use to identify what's coming. I've let that go too. I've detached from all of that. So during this period of time that I was energetically connected to this person who I was identified as my twin flame, and I believe this person knows who I am, that's been made very clear to me. I've been on a journey with this person. I've been made very aware of who he is and in his life and where he is spiritually and all these things. And I must tell you, this connection was so powerful from the higher self. And this is, again, I want to explain this too. The higher self is a detached entity guiding the human version of this oversoul, if that makes any sense. So the higher self has a lot of interest in connecting their counterpart, which is the human being having the soul's experience, which is the person that I know as my twin flame. They have an interest in getting their person in the right connection with the right other human to have the soul experiences that they're meant to have together. So the higher self of my twin flame is very enthusiastic about union. And I talked about this in the episodes about the, Wake Up Neo, and the one after that. I talked about this process. And I thought that we were on track to coming into union. That's what the higher self of this person communicated to me through the messages literally every day. And I believe that that was what was happening. And but I have learned to detach also from the higher self. And I've asked the higher self of this, and I'll get to that in a minute. I've asked to not be in contact or in connection with the higher self, because the higher self is like the full potential version of the human counterpart. But the human counterpart may be in a different reality altogether. And although he may have very well intended to come into union with me at one point, what I understand with this person who was my twin flame is that he's no longer coming, or at least he's not coming now. And the way this happened is so interesting. And I will tell you about this really quickly. This was New Year's Eve. Today's February 1st. This was a month ago. Exactly a month ago, I was looking at tarot messages, and this person is very well known, and I will never say who this person is. But this person is very well known, and I would see their content in my YouTube feed constantly. I mean, they were everywhere. They were so present. And again, this is the higher self showing me this person. It's not the person doing it. The person doesn't have that power to manipulate the YouTube algorithm and to send in imagery or content from their counterpart, their human person. This is so interesting, you guys. This is so amazing. This connection from the higher self. And again, it doesn't mean that the counterpart, the person walking the earth, has any awareness of this at all. And this is something that I've grown to understand. The higher self is so excited about the connection with a high purpose soul. Let's just leave it there. That they are showing me the imagery of this person to such a degree that I am literally saturated by this person's content and imagery throughout my social media. So much so that when I turn on my smart TV, and I talked about this before, I think I talked about it recently when I kept seeing the movie Avatar in the suggested for you line at the top of my screen. I knew to watch the movie Avatar, and I watched it, and it is absolutely the starseed journey. It is the twin flame journey. It is the generational curse breaker journey. All of it is in that movie as well as Moana and the Smurfs and the movie Onward. There's so many, because it's synchronistically following me around, because this is my journey. I'm seeing it everywhere. So anyway, when I turn on my TV, or turned on my TV during the last probably 3 or 4 months of my connection with this person, I would see all of this person's content on my TV screen. And I took pictures of this every day because I was so amazed how all 3 of the little boxes of suggested for you would be this person's content. And I'm like, okay, I guess this connection's happening because all I'm seeing is this person. I was watching this person's content on TV. I was trying to, stay connected. I did episodes about us, to call him in. All this stuff happened that I was guided to do. But I was seeing this person everywhere. I thought that meant that we were coming into union, that it was a sure thing, that it was a done deal. But what happened a few months earlier, and this was, I'm not exactly sure on timeline. I would say back in October. Real quick, I'm going to back up just one more time. I think earlier than that, which might have been September or even August, I received a reading that really stuck with me. And I talked about this reading recently for a different reason. I received a reading that basically said, and this was through Freya Ray, who channels the angels. And I trust her content because she only channels the angels. And I am heavily guided by the angelic realm. So when I get a message from her, I know it's my higher self or one of my guides speaking directly to me. And the message was, I'll never forget this. The message was basically, we found him. We found the other, and I'll use the word chosen one because that's how I'm referred to. I don't really relate to that at all. All it means, and I'm not going to downgrade it either, but all it basically means is I was chosen as a soul to come in and do this work, to have this mission. So anyway, we found the other chosen one. And the other chosen one, this was like back in September. And I'm thinking, what other chosen one? I thought I was in connection with my twin flame. Who else could there possibly be? But it resonated so strongly that I carried this message every day. I would think about it, not every day, but often. And the message basically said that we found the other chosen one who is from a star lineage that we want mixed with yours, basically. And that when you two come together, you're going to seed a new frequency that has never, ever been seeded in the earth plane. And you are going to bring this lineage together. And I thought that to mean, and I think I spoke about this, children. And I'm like, well, I'm 63 years old. But I did have a vision months ago about living well into my multiple hundreds and maybe having children in my 60s or 70s. I don't know. It's all possible. That's all I know. Maybe that's why I'm doing this age regression experiment that I'm having so much fun with, which is why I'm being guided to do a 5-day fast. That might be a whole other episode. I don't know, 100 years from now. We'll see. But anyhow, I received that message like back in September. I had been in connection with this other soul for a couple of months by then. I'm like, what are you talking about? I thought it didn't feel like the person I was with. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to put this aside. I don't know what it means yet. And then lo and behold, a couple of months later, I think this was in November or October, I think, I see a social media post with a person in an interview on a TV show. And I'm listening to the person talk, and I'm just feeling this familiarity. And I'm like, oh, what is this? And I know, because I'm such an ancient soul, I literally have thousands, maybe millions of soulmates on the earth right now. And this is what I was told very early on after the false twin debacle, that the angelic realm and my ancestors, who are the angels, are looking for an appropriate counterpart. I talked about this in the episode, I think, called The Angel and the Soul, or maybe when I had the visitation from Archangel Michael. Maybe it wasn't that one. Right around that time period, there I was receiving messages that were telling me that my ancestors and the angels were searching the earth for the appropriate match for me, because that false twin was not meant for me. And I'm like, okay. And then 2 subsequent soulmates came into my into my awareness. They were showing me this first one, who was a very well-known person in his field, who was meant to be a temporary counterpart, who I was going to be in union with to teach me what true love felt like. But it wasn't meant to be my permanent soulmate or twin flame or counterpart, however you want to label it. That I talked about this in a couple of episodes, where I felt the entrance of this person in my soul, and then I felt him leave when he turned away from the connection. I talked about this. And then the next one never even came into, I heard about him very briefly. I learned who he was. I never knew his name, but he very quickly afterwards learned that he was gone. He never even turned towards the connection. And again, this is the higher self working with the counterpart, their human counterpart, to prepare them for union with a high purpose soul. And because the connection may have been too intense, or that the person was too deep in their karmic reality, they weren't able to energetically and emotionally, mentally, and then spiritually step onto that temple path, which would have brought them into union with me. So again, this is the higher self taking artistic license and representing their human counterpart as this high potential being, who they very well may not be even aware of that. So keep that in mind. So I see this person in my social media, and this is back in, I think, October or November, which now February. And I feel this familiarity. I'm like, oh, what is this? I'm like, okay, maybe this person's meant to, I instantly know this person may be meant to come into my reality, but they're not a romantic connection, because I'm already in one. Energetically, yes, but I'm meant to come into union with this other person. So this is soulmate number 3. And, the person I thought I was coming into union with. First was the false twin. Well, I'm not counting them. There were 2 subsequent, and then this last one, who I was in connection with for a good 6-7 months energetically. And so I see this person back in October, November in my social media feed, and I'm like, what? Who is this person? I feel a real familiarity, but I didn't really think more about it, because I was in this other connection. So lo and behold, about a month later, I would say, I start to see this person's content in my YouTube channel, and I hadn't seen them there before. And in this content was something that I ended up watching, and I'm not going to say what it is. Should I say what it is? Oh boy. I saw something that that drew me in, and it was almost an hour long. And I ended up watching the whole thing. And I'll just say that I learned in this content who this person was at a soul level. I'll just say that. I learned in this content who this person was at a soul level, at an over soul level. And as soon as I listened to this whole thing and I learned what I learned, I knew that the connection with this person was much deeper than I originally thought. But I was still in the connection with this other person, this famous person. And I thought, okay, and I said it then, and I'll say it now. I don't care who the person is. It's the soul connection that I know that my angels are working on. So I'm letting all of it go. Again, that detachment's growing. That was back, I think, I saw that video December 5th. And I watched the whole thing, and I thought, okay, there's something more here. I said out loud to my soul team, I don't know what's going on here. I feel a connection growing here. I don't know what it is. I'm just going to let it go. I'm in connection with this other person. I'm very loyal. I didn't want to just jump the connection because I wasn't sure what it was. So I leaned into this other connection. I thought he was coming into union. I just kept energetically, emotionally connected there. And you have to remember, I'm being bombarded with the imagery of this other person. Every message I'm receiving about a counterpart is he's coming, he's coming, he's coming. And I'm like, okay. So this thing happened on New Year's Eve, which was a month ago. I was looking at messages and I saw an image of this person, my twin flame, the person I thought I was coming into union with, because his higher self was so enthusiastic and showing me a version of our connection that really didn't exist. And this happened with the other two before. I was looking at my YouTube channel, and I was receiving, another message about this union coming any day now. And I'm like, okay. And I saw an image of my counterpart, my twin flame, who I thought at the time was I wouldn't be coming into union with, that just hit me wrong. And I'll tell you what it was. It was an image of him with another person who I know is his current, or I thought was no longer his current counterpart, his current connection. I thought that he was out of that connection and he was working towards union with me. And that was what all the messaging was telling me, that he's out of that connection. He knows that this union is imminent. He's working on it. He's releasing. He's going through this accelerated awakening. All of this stuff that the higher self was communicating to me, along with all the imagery on my TV and throughout my social media. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to step away from this, even though I feel something happening anyway. So on New Year's Eve, I saw this photo, and I just knew that what I've been learning about this person was not actually accurate, not 100%. And it threw me into this energy of doubt. And I remember saying out loud, I said, I don't know what's going on here, but I'm not feeling this anymore. I feel like I'm being shown this for a reason, that this connection is not coming in. And I don't know why, but I'm just going to just allow whatever I feel to, again, this is the process I go through with everything that doesn't make sense in the moment, because my brain cannot conceive of it. My brain in my body has to be the one to process it. So I've learned to circumvent this, which is the doubt and the initial, whatever I feel. I learned to circumvent that and go into my body. And it's usually the next morning that I get clarity. And that's exactly what happened. So that evening I said out loud, he's not coming. He's still in this connection, even though I've been told over and over he's not. I'm not going to hold on to something or someone, even energetically, that isn't coming through for me. I said, and I said it out loud, I said to the angels, if this person is not my soulmate, erase him, please. I said, I don't want to waste time with someone who is not coming in. And I was angry. I said, erase him. I don't want to see him ever again. I went to bed that night, and it was so interesting. Before I went to bed, I opened YouTube again, and right at the top was a message from one of the sources or the tarot channels, who channels a lot of the love readings. And I avoid a lot of them. I avoid them completely now, because I know from my experience with the false twin and the two subsequent counterparts who didn't come through, that the love readings are not necessarily reflective of the actual counterpart's state of mind. So I really have been avoiding them for the most part, but I've been so entangled with this energy and the imagery of this person, I just assumed it was happening. Anyway, that evening I went back after I had that little epiphany. And there was a reading from this person. It was a love reading. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to listen to it. And the reading basically said, don't worry. He's out of that connection. He's coming. Don't worry. And I thought, okay, let me not jump to conclusions. So I went to bed that night and I woke up the next morning and I'm laying in bed and I just started to have this knowing. It just came into my body and I knew it was my higher self saying, whatever you're intuiting right now, just trust it. It's correct. So I went through a process where I thought, okay, I don't think he's a false twin, because that was my first thought. If this person isn't meant for me, if they're misrepresenting themselves, please erase them. By the time I woke up the next morning, I said, I don't think that's what happened. I don't feel betrayed. I don't feel that sense of loss. And I know my body and heart and mind are coherent. So if I feel it, it's true. My mind was the first reaction in the evening before, but by the time I woke up, I knew what had happened. And I said out loud, he's been replaced. I said, there's been a roster change. And I said it out loud and I knew it was true. And I thought, oh my gosh, I yelled at him. I yelled at him the night before and it's not his fault. And you have to understand, it's never anyone's fault. If the counterpart to the higher self, who might be taking artistic license with the potential for the union, it doesn't matter. The person is going through whatever they're going through. And I absolutely respect that. I have no judgment. I have no opinion about it at all. All I know is that that person's no longer coming. So that's where I'm going to leave it. But I knew the next morning, and I was laughing. I said that this was not a false connection, because I thought maybe I was being taken advantage of again. And when you understand yourself at a soul level, which I know who I am at the highest level of my soul, it's a very unique truth. I am under spiritual attack all the time. And I know that my team, which is huge, of angelics and of Pleiadians and of deities and goddesses and ascended masters, they're protecting me. And I said out loud, I'm not being taken advantage of again. That can't happen. My frequency has gone too high. I'm protected from that. And I knew it. I said, oh my gosh, I yelled at him and it wasn't his fault. He was replaced. The roster was changed. And I remember early on the angels saying, we're going to find the best counterpart for you, not just for you as a human woman, but for the mission. And when I saw the content of this person, where I learned who he was at a soul level, I knew that this was the person that I was meant to potentially come into union with. I just knew it because of who I am as a soul and who he is. And that's all I'm going to say. And then I knew instantaneously, even when I was angry the night before, when I'm saying, oh my God, was this another false twin? Was I friggin' duped again? It came into my my awareness, and I said it out loud. I got it, angels. I see the other person. I know what's going on. Even though I was still in my head about what I thought was happening, I knew in my body that this other soul was now being conditioned or prepared to be my counterpart. That's how incredibly refined my intuition has become. And when I have these daydreams that last 2 hours, I'm not dreaming of something that isn't happening. It's already a reality. So I knew the next morning, which was New Year's Day, that the person who I thought was my twin flame is no longer coming. That was his choice. Just let me make that clear. Because he made that choice, at least momentarily, he wasn't moving forward towards this connection, even though he had a choice to do that, I believe. And again, no shade. I understand completely. I ran screaming from my old reality with my hair on fire because I was in danger and I knew it. This person's reality may be quite different. And it's not up to me to judge that. I absolutely don't. But because this person is not coming, at least for now, the angels found another counterpart, the other chosen one, which I was made aware of back in September. And this is how long this has been going on behind the scenes. They have been working on a whole other connection that I was unaware of for the most part until November, which was 2 months ago, a little over 2 months ago. And when I saw that content and learned who the soul of this person was, I knew that something was going on that I maybe didn't fully understand. And that's exactly what happened. So because I was made aware of this person, I started to think about the message that I received back maybe 5-6 months ago now about these two star lineages coming together to create this new frequency, this new human on Earth. And I asked the angels, I said, this was probably 4 or 5 nights ago. I said, do you mind bringing back up that message, the one that I learned about this from months and months ago, about this chosen one being found for me, and that I was going to be in union with another star lineage, which is, again, not done here. This was the first time this is being done, this incredible message. I said, could you bring it back up for me so I could look at it again? And literally the next night, there it was. And I had looked at this 5, 6 months prior. So I was able to listen to it again, and I saved it this time. So when or if I come into union with this other person who is my new counterpart potential, I can show him this, which is so fascinating. But I was able to watch it again, and it absolutely was an indicator from the angelic realm, from my oversoul, from my tribe, that yes, we have found somebody different. And I believe what happened is they knew at this high perspective that this other counterpart was never coming, that they worked with him, and there was just a choice made at some point that it wasn't happening, at least for now. And the choice was from the human. I just want to make that very clear. The human has full right to make a choice here. We are not made to do anything. I surrendered to this soul purpose a year ago or longer ago when I realized what was happening. I said to my oversoul and to my tribe, I said, I surrendered to my soul's purpose here. I am a conduit of divine intention in the earth realm. And I knew that that was my purpose. So I surrendered to that. And during that, and because of that surrender, I don't worry about outcomes. I don't worry about who is this person. It doesn't matter who they are. It's the soul connection that I know that I'm meant for, period. So when I rewatched this episode, this reading a couple of nights ago, I knew that they sent it back to me as a validation that, yes, you're correct. There has been a roster change. We found a soul that is more aligned with your purpose. And when you talk about the twin flame journey, which I've been on this whole time, I thought, and again, you have to let go of labels. The ethereal realm doesn't have labels. They don't care. We label it for our own comfort. The person that I know to be my current counterpart, and I say current because, again, he could make a choice not to come into union. That's his choice. The person that I know carries a soul characteristic that is extraordinarily unique that matches mine. And that's all I'll say right now. And this is why I knew he was a twin, whether it's classic conventional twin flame or not. I knew that the connection with this human being in the earth realm for our shared mission was very powerful. And again, he is a materialist. I'm a spiritualist. It's the same dynamic. It cannot be different. We can't both be spiritualists. We can't both be materialists. This person's oversoul has a whole other intention in the earth realm as mine. And you know, mine, I'll say, is a protector and is a warrior, and is those characteristics of my oversoul are embedded into my human reality. So anyway, I wanted to share this story because it's so fantastical, and I want to call it "Thank You Next," just to be playful, because this is now the fourth counterpart that the angels have been working on a union with me. And I think another thing that's been happening, and I'll say this with all confidence, is that I have grown so fast and so broad and so far in my spiritual evolution, in my embodiment of my oversoul, which is a huge soul. And I am also the souls, and maybe I'm fragments of these souls, or I carry the blueprint of these souls, of these other very famous, very ancient souls. I know that the frequency that I carry is, and I'll use the word extraordinary, not to say it's special, it's just very rare. And that in order for me to be in union with another counterpart, with a human being, they have to be at a certain frequency. And this is why I say, man or no man, let's do this. I'm here for this mission. I don't care about, and I don't want to say I don't care. I don't want to sound, it's not that I don't care. I just am aware of myself at a soul level. I know what I'm doing here. So if I can keep moving down my spiritual path, my temple path towards the full expression of my mission here, I want to keep going if I can without my counterpart. but I know I'm meant for a counterpart. So if this human being who carries this other divine soul chooses this union, then we will come together and will be an extraordinarily powerful connection. And I mean otherworldly powerful. I mean spiritual warfare is attacking us, and just imagine a dome of energy around both of us as divine, very high purpose souls. And the arrows from the lower vibrational entities who are trying to keep humanity suppressed and distracted and unaware of their own power and essence and abilities. Just imagine a dome of energy around me with arrows bouncing off of it every minute of every day. That's the higher you go in your frequency, the more attacked you are, but the more protected you are, because you now have an army of souls around you. I'm sorry, I'm talking about me. I have an army of souls around me protecting me from spiritual warfare, because I've grown out of the frequency where that is able to touch me. So I am impervious at this point to low frequency energy, not just because my frequency has risen to a degree that they can't come anywhere near me energetically. Remember, the frequency is everything. If I'm on a higher frequency, they're down here. Their reality is completely different. I don't exist where they are, and they don't exist where I am. That's how the frequency works. That's why my reality is so materially different from someone who is still in their lower vibrancy, which, again, no shade, absolute respect. I lived 58 years of my life there. I have no judgment from the counterpart who is unable or unwilling to come through. That's up to that person. I have no judgment, nothing but respect. But because that counterpart was taking his time, the angels were still looking. And they found one that they felt was an appropriate replacement. And I'll just say that again, no shade, no judgment at all. I know who this person is, and I've been seeing them. I asked the higher self, I said, listen, I said at the night of New Year's Eve, I know who my new counterpart is, even though I was still unsure about what happened. I thought maybe I was in a false twin connection. I wasn't sure until the next morning when I had the resonant intuitive time to process what I had learned, and I understood there was a roster change. I said to the higher self, please don't inundate me with imagery of this person. I know who he is. If he comes into my reality, I'll know that that's what happened, that this is the person that I'm meant to be in union with. I don't need to see him all over the place. I don't need to lean in energetically. I know very well that this might not happen. It's up to the person. Again, you have to respect the free will. That is the first rule of incarnation in the earth plane. The free will of the human counterpart, who is the vessel for the soul to have the experience, says yes or no. That's why I had to surrender to my purpose as a vessel, as an avatar for my soul to have this incredible experience, heal generational wounds, and have this impact on Mother Earth and her ascension. I had to surrender to that. I had to say, yes, I agree to do this. Because if I don't agree, I'm going towards my ego and I'm staying in my familiar old reality, which may be miserable, but I know it. I know how to exist here. And trust me, I had to go through a period of absolute chaotic terror as I was disconnecting from a reality I knew was toxic and I couldn't go back to, but I had no motherfucking idea where I was going. I was literally in a void of blackness. It's scary. It's scary as it is scary, but I knew at a soul level, and this is my soul saying, it's okay. I promise you, just surrender. I knew that where I was going, I could never imagine with my brain. I could never conceive of in the belief system that I had lived within in the lower vibrational versions of me. And this is all by design, guys. You don't get to know the answers to the test when you're not ready to take the test. Your soul only gives you what you can handle. And that's why it's always a progression. It's always a process. Oh, it's so extraordinary, you guys. I am just losing my mind in awe of who I am and the experience that I'm having, and the souls, the angelic, ascended, incredibly intelligent, masterful, extraterrestrial souls. And I'm sorry, they're all ETs. God is real. And I'll just leave you with this. God is real. I've never used the term God because I didn't like the idea of a patriarchal figure that I knew wasn't right. I was always adverse to religion. I wouldn't even go in churches. I felt like I might burst into flames, not because I'm an evil soul. I didn't agree energetically with what religion was. The same with the medical complex and education, all of it. None of it made any sense to me as a child and up until I came into a reality that actually felt right for me, which is completely ethereal at this point. I just knew that where I was being guided was where I was meant to go. And I let go of my beliefs and and the pain and everything that kept me buried in the karmic loops that I kept repeating because I didn't know any better. It's a scary thing to leave the delusion of the 3D matrix and to step into the unknown mystery of the void, because you can't go directly from the matrix to the 5D. You have to go through the void. The void is dark. It is full of demons and dragons. This is your trauma. This is your anger, your suppressed nature, everything that you suppressed in order to survive. It all comes bubbling up in the void. And guess what? You're sitting in the dark alone. Holy shit. It's not easy. I'm not going to lie. So I would throw no shade to anyone who doesn't take that journey, who doesn't leap into to the abyss. I understand how difficult it is. And I'm not saying that anyone should do that. That's the free will choice of the human counterpart, or the human vessel, the human avatar of the soul, of the oversoul. So I'll just leave you with that. It is it's an extraordinary experience. I am in an energy right now where I could literally start to fly away and not think anything of it. I know I can feel this new reality pulling at every cell in my body. And I got to let go of linear time. I had to detach from all expectation, including my counterpart, who seems like a lovely person, by the way. He seems very opposite from me, which is very exciting, where the other counterpart felt very similar to me, which felt very comfortable. Two different dynamics, but very, this is the yin and the yang. This is what this is. We are not meant to be yang, yang, yin, yin. I know I can learn so much from this person, and I can continue to grow and heal in the ways that I can only heal with a counterpart. And I know he has activations waiting for me, which I'm so excited about in my DNA. And I have activations for him. Again, I'm the spiritualist. He's the materialist. It's very exciting. But I hold on to no expectation. I am open and receptive to this connection when or if it comes through. But I'm also the divine feminine. I am not the chaser. I am not the one who goes out and chases anything. I'm the intuitor. I align with the energy. I draw it in like magic, because it is magic. Frequency is magic. Frequency. I'm bouncing in my chair. Okay, I'll relax. This is so amazing. I'm the divine feminine. The divine masculine is the one who pursues. He's the one who aligns with her. She can't align with him because she draws him up spiritually. He draws her down materially, which is where she needs to go. And I don't mean lower frequency. I mean grounding in the material realm. I have grown so much spiritually, my counterpart balances me out. He is the materialist, so he awakens the material elements of my DNA that had to be dormant during my ascension. Otherwise, they would have kept me grounded. I wouldn't have been able to connect ethereally, intuitively. And one more thing, intuition is telepathy with your higher self. That's what it is. I am being spoken to telepathically by the angels and the ascended ones and my guides, who are dragons from the Viking era. Oh my gosh, you guys, there's so much here. And I keep telling the dragons, I have 2 dragon guides. I said, can I please meet you in this lifetime? Can I please put me in a secluded place on a mountain where you can come and visit? They're back. The dragons are here again. They are a frequency that left because humankind dropped so low in their frequency that the dragons couldn't stay, because they can't exist in that frequency. They are higher frequency divine beings, as are many other types of beings that are extinct, that we think are extinct, that are just not here, or they're not visible because the frequency we can't connect with them yet. We're not allowed to see them until we can align energetically with them. And I'm talking about unicorns and winged horses and fairies and nymphs, and there's so much more. That's why I said, when I said that fantasy is real, all of the fairy tales are based on a myth that is not mythological. This is real. Greek mythology is real. The gods are real. That's why I resonated so strongly in school. When I couldn't connect with any of the other curriculum, I connected with Greek mythology, so much so that I was absent in school. My parents were absent. I lived with my father, who was absent. My mother was left when I was 11 and moved across the country with her boyfriend. I didn't go to school. I just chose not to. So I didn't go to school, 7th, 8th grade. I actually worked part-time, and that was the school trying to keep me in school. I worked a job. I worked at Burger King part-time when I was in 7th grade. I went to school in the morning and I went to work in the afternoon. So it was a way to keep these wandering souls in school. But I resonated so low with the curriculum. But there was one subject matter, and I remember this very clearly, Greek mythology. When I was learning about that, I went to school every day and I got an A on my test. And I remember the teacher saying, pointing at me and saying, if she can get an A and not be here, and you guys can't even get a whatever, you know, she's an example of someone who, when you apply yourself, that was the point of it, you can get an A. And I just knew that this subject matter was in my body, in my soul, that I lived during that era. I knew that gods and goddesses were real, that the Vikings were connected to this frequency. There's so much here. My God, it's a whole series of messages, but I realize I'm getting long here. So I just wanted to leave you with that. I don't know what's going to happen. So this is the ongoing soulmate saga. And I think I'm going to at least name part of this episode in honor of the angels who validated with joy, and I think in playfulness, the title that I was opining about with my daughter, which is Thank You Next. And again, no shade to the counterparts. I know that we're all on our own journey, and they can be incredibly they're specific to each person, and I have no opinion. I'm just grateful to have this still progressing, to have a counterpart potentially on the horizon, number 4. We'll see if he comes through. If he does, I'm very excited. If he doesn't, I know that I'm going to keep moving. I came here for a reason, and I have to let go of outcomes. I have to remain detached, which is the only way to live. It is liberating. It is magical. I can enjoy each experience as an intrigue and as an experiment, and it's so much fun. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you so much for your presence, especially if you stay through the whole thing. I'm so excited to come back again when I have something new to talk about. But for now, I leave you, and enjoy the magic in your life. Look around, quiet your heart, quiet your mind for 20 minutes and just listen. When you start to pay attention, it wants you to know it's there. Anyway, I'll leave you with that. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one.